you know what I am talking about as soon as you clicked on this video. Poptropica is one of those games that slapped as a kid. Nothing screams the late 2000s and early 2010s than booting up Poptropica on a slow school computer. Poptropica is a classic amongst my generation, and for once, I feel as though I am right in my camp. Sometimes I feel a little out of my place with hypothetical claims such as, what is he to judge Super Mario Sunshine so harshly? But Poptropica, on the other hand, I grew up with the advent of free browser and or mobile games. Poptropica was high on the list for many people because of its consistent quality and replayability. Unlike cool math games, which had the same arcadey type experiences you knew would always be there, Poptropica, similar to Club Penguin, would consistently add new content and features to keep players engaged. For any of you that don't know, Poptropica is a browser game that has players exploring different islands to solve puzzles and embark on adventures. It was one of those edutainment games, but really, it leaned a lot more on the fun and whimsical side than like math. The educational aspect would be stretched thin and sometimes hard to classify. Just because there's an island regarding the Titanic, does that mean kids are learning about the Titanic? Kind of, maybe? It's hard to call. But that part doesn't really matter because what matters is that these islands made us feel alive. The variety Poptropica offered, I mean, they really covered it all. There was an island where you could play as Paul Blart. Reality TV Island was a fun one. Being able to compete in a survival-like setting was super fun. If I get voted out the first round, I swear to God, I will never swear to God again. This is dumb! Wimpy Kid Island, baby, this one was a classic, no doubt. Poptropica was created under the greater influence of Jeff Kinney, the author of all the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. This is pretty cool, and he apparently had a lot of creative influence and control regarding the development and creation of the game. Poptropica really had a lot to offer. Because there were all types of islands ranging from historic to really out there ideas, there was at least one island that would immediately catch your attention when booting up the game. Fortunately for us, Poptropica is still very much running strong, and all we have to do is simply boot it up and jump into the game, and I stand corrected. So the list of islands currently available is smaller than the number of times I release a video on time. I knew this fact coming in, and really most people should have been able to see this coming. With the shutdown of Flash, many of these browser platforms had to transition to different engines, and Poptropica, according to its dev team, was built on such old hardware it would require a from-the-ground-up conversion to newer systems. This is a similar situation Rovio found themselves in regarding Angry Birds. There's only one problem with this. They wrote an article in June of 2020 explaining all this and stated that they were working hard to port those islands to the new game. It's currently 2022, and I feel underwhelmed. I think old islands aren't on the priority list for Poptropica, which is a shame because if they want to bring life to the game again, I believe getting classic islands would do wonders in attracting interest to the game. So my point is that I'll be playing on the Steam version for this review/retrospective. There was a Steam version released? Poptropica had announced they would port a handful of classic islands to Steam by pure coincidence while in the planning stages for this video. While I'm happy this game is somewhat preserved through digital storefronts, it does leave me feeling a bit empty inside. This video isn't a review of the Steam release, but I must at least mention what Poptropica is offering for the low price of $20! Do you know how many $5 Little Caesars pizzas I could buy with that money? Actually, it's not $5 anymore, it's $6.49 now. Insert funny photo of the consumer price index. For one, 13 islands is way too small, especially for how long we've been waiting for something like this. Second, for being a from-the-ground-up port, they did absolutely nothing to improve the experience. The game is in a weird aspect ratio, a middle between 4:3 and 16:9. The resolution is technically improved, but I have a feeling that for OG Poptropica's case, it's more likely the browser's compression that makes the image look fuzzier. So while it's technically an improvement, I doubt it was a deliberate design choice. And that's really the only benefit of this version aside from playing classic islands. The game looks and runs smoother simply because it is running natively off your computer. They didn't even bother adding a full screen toggle. What? What was the last game you played that didn't even allow for a full screen option? It sucks and isn't ideal, but it fits the bill for the video. I played a handful of islands, some of which I'm nostalgic for, so let's go through a deep dive and see how well this children's puzzle game holds up. The first island being treated to the Danerade showcase, very prestigious award I might add, is Tangled Island. On paper, I really like the idea of this island. It's a pretty simple concept. The past has been jumbled around in that certain important artifacts are in their wrong places. You, as the player, have to go and fix everything so that the future isn't ruined. We talked to a couple of scientists and they tell us that the future is in peril if somebody doesn't put everything back into the rightful place. A little odd that it doesn't affect things now, as in the present. Still, you know what? I can let this tiny insignificant detail go regarding a late 2000s children's flash game. We end up going to the future to meet our future selves, and apparently everything is destroyed in a mess if we don't do something. He eventually gives us a time travel device, and now using this device is where the bulk of the puzzle solving begins. This island structure is a little different from most in that you'll be hopping to influential moments in history, unlike a traditional Poptropica island where you stay in the same setting and get quite antiquated with it by the end. Here though, going to different time periods is really fun, and having the scene change makes this island arguably one of the freshest and most consistently unique islands of the bunch. It also proves that Poptropica was willing and successfully able to change its formula a bit to great success. This island is an example of the educational factor this game explores. Sometimes, traveling to different historical moments taught kids around the world about important figures and their contributions to society, such as Thomas Jefferson and the Declaration of Independence, Leonardo da Vinci and his consistent out-of-box thinking during the scientific revolution, and Mansa Musa. You remember Mansa Musa, right? The guy who was filthy rich and had created a large and expansive region of cultural centers to spread the teachings of Islam? Yeah, that guy! Look, he's on the screen right now. Now Poptropica, for most kids, is kind of hard, and that'll be a talking point in just a bit, but for this island, it's not too bad. Not only can you really not get lost because there's only one screen in each region you travel to, but especially now as a history connoisseur, I could quickly identify which item was associated with whom. Going through the different periods is fun, although nobody really questions what would be obscure and foreign clothing to them when I talk to them, but you know what? Whatever. Talking to all the locals gives the place a better sense of realism. Then finally, when everything is said and done, we return to the future to find a happy and prosperous land brimming with freedom. Thanks, Declaration of Independence. If you live anywhere else, sorry, my Uzbekistanians. We again meet our future selves, who gives us a gold medallion, signifying the completion of the island, and that's Tangled. This is an easy recommendation for anybody starting or even replaying this game. Most Poptropica islands can struggle with repetitiveness and general confusion. Here though, due to the structure of this island, those issues are all but alleviated. Now this is it, baby. Monster Carnival. This is an idea that simply works well in the Poptropica setting. After getting off the blimp, I talked to local residents who tell me a carnival is about to open to the public. I walk into a pharmacy to speak with Christopher Lloyd, who is pretty nonchalant about letting someone tamper with likely expensive and valuable equipment. He gives us an order to fill out, and this is to get us antiquated with one of the main puzzle-solving aspects of this island, combining different solutions to form compounds. We then play a minigame where we have to separate and combine certain, elements? I mean, it's okay, but the reagents and products bouncing around so much can make this feel more like a chore. Walking into Honest Gabe's now, it's only now I realize this might be a subtle riff on the saying of Honest Abe, and if so, that's pretty cool. This is probably a good opportunity to mention that the writing in this game can somewhat be funny. It's nothing like outstanding, but the dialogue has a fair amount of depth for a kid's game. Okay, I run to the right to talk to this guy who tells me his name is Edgar. He tells me that the carnival isn't ready to launch, but that they are about to open soon. So in typical Poptropica fashion, the next little bit requires a fair amount of running around and doing fetch quests for certain people. It sounds worse than it actually is though. A certain level of intellect is needed for some of these. You must lie to the mechanic at Honest Gabe's to get a garden hose for the duck game, replace the bottom of the test your strength game with a bouncy ball to show up how muscular you are, sharpen the blunted dart to be able to actually pop the balloons. I wonder why nobody can win this game. The last thing I had to do was get a mask to scare a couple teenagers off the Land of Love ride. Right afterwards, some locals informed us that the carnies had disappeared, and something just seems off. Jumping into the forest as a kid, I could not figure out what to do next for the life of me. The forest is looping continuously? What is baby Danerade going to do next? You're supposed to follow the path that contains the trail of an item that one of the carnies dropped. Was this too hard for me to understand at the time? There are only two ways I could go. It's like Spot the Difference Baby Edition, and I couldn't even understand that. I mean, I turned out fine, I think. Being a Discord mod does things to people. Okay, so all the carnies got possessed possess and turn into different monsters. That's where the monster of Monster Carnival comes in, Einstein. Some of these designs are pretty out there and, well, scary? I don't know. As a kid, I was like, oh shit! Alright, so nighttime comes and look, it's a full moon because, like, of course. The carnies are monsters, which we gotta get past them. Oh no! We find Dr. Edgar George Zomboss and the Ringmaster. The Ringmaster can fix all of this, of course! Avoid the monsters, don't die, Danerade! Meeting up with the Ringmaster reveals that he doesn't seem too awfully phased about everything that's happening, and he knows exactly how to fix things. What happenstance? The combination of ingredients is, of course, in the pocket of the guy who runs the Ferris wheel. Sorry for the alarm. It goes off every time an unnecessary fetch quest triggers in this game. The little gremlin is too fast, so we must figure out a way to get him down. Earlier, we had gained a hammer after beating the Test Your Strength game, and I'm not gonna lie, it took me an embarrassing long amount of time to realize you can pound the ground using the space button. I'm sorry, dear poopy playtime loving viewer. My bad. Alright, so we fetch out the formula combination from the duck game. Shout out to this mad lad and the cute animation attached to her. Now we gotta go back to the pharmacy, and it's closed. No worries, I just have to do the tried and true accidentally cheese Poptropica. Okay. Removing some newspapers reveals how some bird boy was kicked out of the very town we are in for reasons. So we concoct the miracle formula, bring it back to the Ringmaster, and Bird Boy! Basically, he wants to hypnotize the whole town because, like, Bloc Québécois syndrome. But we can't let that separatist-loving Quebecer get away. So we had to tirelessly play Remember the Mirror minigame where we have to identify what mirror he's in. This goes on way too long. This should be like a standard 3 hits kind of thing, but no. You have to break like 7 mirrors before he is about to hypnotize you, and then I guess my character just like Uno reverse card him. I didn't quite follow. Alright, and the next day, everything is back to normal. Yay! The carnies and townsfolk are back to their normal selves, ready to go to the next city. And that's Monster Carnival. This is a great island and some good puzzles that don't feel too out there. It was a fun start to finish, and I felt like I had saved the day with the threat being somewhat high for Poptropica standards. Alright, on to our last island. So the last 2 islands weren't anything too crazy. They were both labeled as 1 and 2 stars regarding difficulty respectively. Escape from Pelican Rock is one of the newer Poptropica islands and is labeled a fat 3 stars. I'm about to hit you with a huge wave of nostalgia.
Hey everyone, it's your friend Think Noodles, and welcome to my walkthrough for Poptropica's Escape from Pelican Rock.
The ever-popular Poptropica walkthrough was a consistent search result for many kids playing this game, and Think Noodles, he was the man for the job. Being much older, I challenged myself to see if I could beat this island all on my own, just like a big boy. Immediately, we kick off with the chase sequence as a burglary had just been committed at the local bank. I'm gonna chase him down, be the hero, and probably receive 50% of what he stole, maybe please? By pure chance, the burglar left the money he stole because it was carrying him down. I don't know. Apparently, Danerade, when playing this game, didn't notice the literal fat stacks of cash and decided to jump around for an excessively long amount of time. When clicking the money, the thief comes back to sack us up. And by pure coincidence, he looks exactly like us. And you can imagine what happens next. The real burglar leaves, and we've been framed for the crime. We've been incorrectly labeled as the Booted Bandit. I would have preferred a cooler name, but whatever. Well, home sweet home. I, did whatever this is. Acrobats, apparently. This island structure is slightly different in that the bulk of the experience is confined to 4 distinct areas. The first area is the recreational center, where there's sunlight. There's this dude named Patches with a bird on his head who is pretty nice, just generally has good vibes. The others are a mixed bag. Some people are trying to lift weights. You know, your arms aren't more than like 3 pixels, so is it really working? Might I suggest unhealthy doses of creatine? Then we got this dude who just likes to paint. All 3 of these personality types will be necessary though. Soon afterwards, we meet the warden who was like less than kind toward his prisoners. He decides to single me out. Hey, that's not nice! I'm suing once I get out of here. Oh, pish posh. Our job at the prison is making license plates, similar to the chemistry minigame of Monster Carnival, where it's a little activity spread across the island. Our reward is sticks of gum, which is the black market sort of dealings, is basically the prison's currency. Eating is subsequent. Shockingly enough, the food isn't very good. Gordon Ramsay would disapprove.
Hot wings next to raw pork. You'll kill everybody.
He tells us he needs 3 caged-free eggs. So going back outside, we ask our buddy Patches here what he's doing, and he throws some seeds down to feed the birds. This attracts another bird, and that is how we accumulate 3 eggs. I also talked to this guy, who gives us prisoner files for 3 sticks of gum. This isn't too important now, but it'll come in handy later. So I go back to the shift guy to give him his 3 eggs, and he gives me access to the kitchen where I can pick up an uncooked piece of pasta. I am a Michelin star prison chef, thank you very much. Earlier, our friend here had made a fool of himself so that we could get an extra spoon from the guard, filling in for the guy who usually gives us spoons. When making license plates, we can overheat the machine if we make too many. This causes the prison worker to be occupied with fixing it. This allows us to use the metal grinder to manufacture our extra spoon to a chiseling tool. And this will be important for later. While slowly gathering the eggs for the chef earlier, one of the main objectives really that rounds out this whole island are doing little chores for certain people. Our artist friend feels the need to want to paint something different than the slight resemblance of outside life, i.e. buildings he can barely see past the tall prison walls. Talking to him reveals he'd prefer to paint, well, a flower. Using Patches as seeds, we can slowly start growing a flower. We poured water into a cup we received when we first arrived at Pelican Rock. After the flower grew and giving it to our artist friend, he thanked us considerably. Not only does he offer his services for our future needs, but in addition, he provides us with the painting he had been working so hard on. And as you guessed it, this will be important for later. I keep emphasizing the importance of certain items being used for later because with these more complex islands, man, is it hard to figure out what you need to do sometimes. Even though you have many tools and items at your disposal, sometimes the puzzle pieces fail to click, and that illustrates probably the worst flaw of Poptropica. Its cryptic nature can lead players to feel dissatisfied at certain points. We can be presented with so many options. We have a painting, a chisel, and an uncooked pasta, but then we don't actually know what to do with it. It's actually exemplified on an island like this because at certain points, you know what to do, but you'll have to go through and see the same dialogue and cutscenes just to get to the one room you need. You can technically solve everything simultaneously, but most players, including myself, will be trying to solve things out situation by situation. And sadly, the option of putting the game down to return to it isn't ideal because it is very likely you or I will forget certain elements. Maybe we were onto something and had a couple of loose threads. If I put the game down for a day, a week, a month, what chances do I have in remembering everything where I left off? It feels like a Zelda game in certain regards. I say this because Pelican Rock is a pretty good example at the classic run around and tirelessly figure out specific steps to advance within the story. Okay, well, let's continue, shall we? We use the spoon to chisel out the vent in our cell. Going through the other side, we use our cup to fill it with plaster. The plaster then goes into the mashed potatoes to make them rock hard, inedible to serve. The chef just kind of places it on a chair, giving us the opportunity to Michelangelo our way through to make an oddly perfect looking dummy head. When and how I learned to make something like this is beyond me. Because of giving that flower to our artiste friend, he paints our chiseled dummy head as a perfect replica of our face. This then leads us to actually be able to explore the other side of the vent without the guard noticing our absence. By wandering a bit, we get access to the prison's vent system, and through a pretty tedious puzzle that I know for a fact I would have never have been able to solve as a kid, we must redirect the air to go over the worker in the license plate room and the stuck-up prisoner during lunch. Our master plan is coming to fruition slowly but surely. The lunch table section is pretty easy. Just turn on the fans and stir the mashed potatoes to have it travel up the vents and land on Remy Bucksaplenty's luscious hair. This causes a food fight, and the chef tries to stop it, to limited success. We retrieve his much beloved mixer, and he is so happy he doesn't want it anymore. Now, the license plate room is a little more cryptic. We need to get the drill bit we use when creating license plate. Similar to the spoon, we have to return it back after our shift. The air coming through the vents distracts the guard as it fogs up his glasses. However, I just didn't quite know what to give him. I was thinking in my head, talking to different characters. Usually, if you get in a situation like this in Poptropica, you do the classic aimlessly run around until you find something you missed. But with only 4 rooms, there isn't much where my item could be. It took me a crazy amount of time to figure out you have to talk to the painter dude to get him to paint that uncooked piece of pasta we got earlier. This was, that one was tough. And now we can give the guard the painted piece of pasta to combine the mixer from the lunchroom and the drill from the license plate room. This creates the creatively titled mixer with drill bit item. A couple of other prisoners somehow just find me and want to help us out. You know, we help them, they help us. So tomorrow, the master plan goes into full effect. We get an opportunity to say goodbye to some of our pals we met on this adventure. Not that I'll miss all of them, of course. And now we try to escape the island in a typical stealth section. Just don't let the light see you, that's all. We nearly get caught until Patches' bird comes in to save the day. Honestly, one of the best anime saves of the 2010s. We escape, but not for long, as the shore is filled with police officers scattered about. After sneaking past them, we climb on top of a building. The same building our painter friend conjured up. It looks different from the painting, and apparently some treasure was sealed up here. But the real booted bandit is here to ruin everything once again. Oh no, which one is the real booted bandit? It's almost like one of them is wearing boots and the other isn't. Remember those prison files I got way back in the beginning? Well, on Remy's file, i.e. Fosbury's file, lies the measurements he is trying to keep. Putting the code in, top 10 biggest trolls in gaming right here, folks. And soon after, the real booted bandit gets taken away because as the criminal, he wouldn't have known the code to unlock the safe. The marshal and I have an oddly casual conversation despite being wrongly put in jail for about 3 weeks. And just like that, we have beaten the island. And that's Poptropica. I think a regular review format would have been off for this video. Like, can you really review Poptropica? So I think going over a handful of islands really illustrates the depth and complexity Poptropica could get. I'm not gonna go as far as to say Poptropica is like this forgotten masterpiece by any means. I mean, replaying this game was fun, but it's not engaging all the time. This is because so much of the gameplay involves lots and lots of running back and forth, but the amount of creativity exerted by this franchise cannot be matched. Even today, solving a particular puzzle or figuring out the necessary steps to advance is rewarding. For what it was, Poptropica was and still holds a special place in my heart. Roll the music!